Oh, what fantastic presentations. Absolutely phenomenal. We're going to launch a poll now, which will ask you some questions that's relevant to those presentations. And while we'll do so, I just wanted to introduce your facilitator for this Q&A, Alan Blackwood. Many of you will know him from the Younger Persons in Nursing Home Alliance, and in Victoria, he's held with great esteem as a fantastic supporter of the community. He has extensive experience in the area of progressive neurological illness as well as disabilities, as well as peer-to-peer support. I could go on and on, but there wouldn't be enough time in the Q&A. So I'm so grateful that Alan's made the time in his extremely busy schedule to facilitate this session. I'm sure he's going to absolutely thoroughly enjoy it, I have to say. I'm going to share the results soon. We're just waiting for there's Alan. Welcome aboard, Alan. Have you had your coffee this morning, Alan?
Yep.
Oh, I can't hear you. I think maybe because they're going to mute me first, I think.
I think I'm on.
Yep, I can hear you now. Did you have your coffee?
I did. Yep. Got the first things first. Yep.
Fantastic. Had to have my hot chocolate this morning, Alan, to get my brain working, I have to say. Okay, I'm going to share the results with you all. Thank you for your participation. It's much appreciated. We're still waiting for some panelists to come on board. I might just go through the results with you while we're waiting. Alan, this might be of interest for the panelists as well when you start the Q&A. Have you previously attended any HV community events or balls? Not yet. Oh, you can only come to the ball if you sing karaoke, I have to say. And you'll have to fight most of us for the mic. And if you haven't attended any fundraising events previously, what is the main reason? You don't know about them. Okay, thank you for that feedback. That was really interesting. I think we have them all here now. I'm going to jump off, but Alan, I was being really naughty because I haven't seen Lauren and Jacob for ages. And Kat, thank you so much for being here. Kat's overseas, guys. She's not in Australia, so it's a bit, the time difference is a killer. But it's fantastic. We were all looking forward to going to the conference this year, of course, but COVID put a stop to that. But as I said to Kat, you won't stop us once we're allowed to come over there. You'll be invaded by Aussies. So good luck with that, Kat, can I just say? So I might, Alan is going to facilitate this session. Guys, you are in very, very good hands. So I might hand you over to Alan now, and I'm looking forward to the Q&A. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tam, and hi everyone. Hi, Kat. Hi, Jacob and Lauren. Great to have you on board. Really impressed with your videos. I have to say, I'm a huge fan and have huge respect for peer movements and also people who get involved and run these peer-led initiatives. I kind of think that, we heard yesterday from researchers and they have their own authority and clinicians have authority, but I just think consumers and people with lived experience have an enormous amount of authority and so much to give. And I think it certainly came through just in terms of raising awareness and bring people together. There's actually, no one better placed than people with that lived experience to do that. So yeah, it was really good to hear your stuff in more detail. Jacob and Lauren, I'll start with you guys. I just worked out you've cycled nearly more than 6,000 kilometres over 12 years and raised upwards of $150,000 for Huntington's Victoria, which is amazing. In the video, you said that you have people coming along and joining the Hunters group who have had no association with Huntington's. How have you found sort of the growth of awareness in those sort of people who just sort of rock up and get involved and potentially stick around?
Yeah, well, I mean, when we first started off, a lot of people had a close connection with the disease just through seeing what Mum went through with it. But over time, through both of our function and fundraising side of things, or even just as you were talking about, people hearing about the ride and what a challenge it is and stuff like that, you seem to just grow a little bit more and more each year just through word of mouth. And it does make a huge difference. And you meet people that obviously never had really any connection with the disease before, but once they sort of catch the bug of the fundraising and the doing the cycling and that, they tell their friends, then you meet a new person, and you sort of all become very connected through it all. So yeah, it's great. And we, I would say we have more people wanting to join each year. We really have to try and keep it sort of under wraps a little bit more. We've never struggled to find numbers. It's more so just trying to facilitate getting that many people away, as many people as we can. But we always think the more people we have involved, the more fundraising we can do, the more, you know, different things that we can do. So always happy to have people to join us.
Yeah, that's great. And Lauren, you mentioned in the video just about sort of through the fundraising process to sort of be able to having the opportunity to explain the impact of Huntington's and what it is. I mean, it's one of the challenges of a rare disease is actually getting a foothold in the pecking order, I suppose, of diseases. There's a lot of competition, and awareness is really hard. But what do you think kind of the impact is of hearing from someone who's had the lived experience?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not good with public speaking.
Yeah, as you said, it is a big challenge, and there are so many diseases out there, and you see, you know, all the things that, you know, it might be viral things like an ice bucket challenge and stuff like that, and you hear a lot of things in the media about other diseases. So it is a bit of a challenge, but I suppose everyone's always keen to jump on board and give you a hand. And, you know, when they hear about some of the things that people go through with Huntington's and that, yeah, as I mentioned before, you never really struggle to have people get involved.
Yes, social media has a very good impact on trying to raise money and awareness. I run the Hunters, our Hunters cycling page, Facebook page, and I'm constantly posting things when we have an event. And then you just see everyone who's shared it or who's viewed it, liked it, everything like that. And yeah, more and more people are finding out about what we're doing, and they're coming along, and yeah, it's really great.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's really good. Yeah, so there's obviously, you know, 12 years is a long time, but you're clearly going to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're growing each year. More and more people are aware of what we're doing and are keen to get involved, which is great.
No, that's great. No worries. Now, Kat, you've just that was amazing listening to your stories. Well, you've started a global movement with your work, and I've seen you on the internet described as a rare leader, and I must say that's you know, got to sort of agree with that after listening to that. Thing that jumped out for me is just that, you know, kind of reinforced the whole power of peer support, you know, and that whole element of trust and sort of affinity with other people who have had similar experiences. How important do you think that is? You know, you mentioned that there are people out there who are scared to talk and, you know, really kind of, you know, challenged by the stigma of the disease. I mean, how important is it for people, you know, in that situation to talk to others with lived experience?
It's vital. I think for all of the young people that I've ever worked with across the many years I've been doing this, the big thing or the most important thing for any of them is speaking to other young people who have gone through or who are doing the thing as them, because a lot of young people don't have that within their community peer support, so their friends at school or at work. They just don't understand the pressure that they're under. They don't understand, why don't you just go and get tested? It's only a blood test, you know, things like this where, well, it's actually a lot bigger than that. And why are you talking about funeral planning and you're only 17 or things like this? But these are things that young people within that community just don't have a place to talk. And when they sit down with other young people who are the main carers for a parent, or who are involved in caregiving, or who are going through a genetic testing journey, they just have this affinity, and they can just get it all out and just talk to one another. And there's a huge healing that comes with that. You know, we've never really had this in this community and this extent before. And it's over the last probably 25 years, there's been a huge shift where people have started talking about it, and we get amazing projects like raising awareness, like the Hunters Project, that does that, and it gets people. And Huntington's is a disease that's quite addictive. So even if you're not personally touched by Huntington's, you're going to get roped in if you hear about it, because you hear a family story and you cannot help but be attached to it, and want to help and want to do something. And whether that's just saying, I know what that is, or I'm going to join a bike ride, or I'm going to raise awareness, it's just hugely important. And it all comes from that ability to talk to somebody about their experience. So it's vital within this community.
Yeah. And so what's given you sort of personally, as someone who runs this sort of movement, what's given you kind of the most satisfaction in having done the work that you've done?
The young people, like, it's, I don't think I've ever done any work with young people. You just kind of like say, yeah, okay, go for it. And they go for it. You know, like I did all the fact checking. I made sure that the volunteers had the right police checks to be able to do things. I made sure that we had enough money in the bank. But in terms of all the designing of the educational materials, thinking up the projects, that's all young people. And it was young people who were brave enough to stand on the stage at World Congresses and tell their story. It was young people who were brave enough to challenge the system and say, we should be part of it. And all I did was hold quotes. You know, there wasn't much that I did other than kind of like encourage them to go forward and do that, and give them the tools that they needed. But they have, honestly, young people have changed the world when it comes to HD, because it wasn't that long ago that we had people who were absolutely adamant that we should not be talking about Huntington's. It should be a secret. It should be something that we should be ashamed of. It should be something that is only discussed behind the doctor's door. And it's changed. It is changing, and that can only be better. And one of the things that we've learned about talking about things, not just Huntington's, is that if we can talk about things and we can get the support around anything, then we are healthier. But it also means that the next generation are healthier, and the generation after that are healthier. And that's what's important in Huntington's, is that it's not just the Huntington's gene that will change your DNA. It's how we talk about it, it's how we hold it, and it's how we decide to journey with it that will change our DNA, and it will change our future's DNA as well.
Yeah, because it's not that long ago that people, you know, with disability, mental illness, Huntington's, were just locked away.
Yeah.
Just people were institutionalized, and it's still, you know, the consumer movement's only still relatively young in terms of history. And I think, you know, as you say, each generation needs to learn from the one before, and we need to sort of really put some distance between that, you know, institutionalization, stigma, and the fact that diagnosis is just it's the end point rather than the beginning point of a whole sort of
completely,
you know, finding your identity and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, if we were looking at just like recent history, the treatment for Huntington's disease that was in front of Time magazine, for instance, in the late 80s, early 90s, was that we would just sterilize anybody. You know, that was a treatment plan for Huntington's, was that we would just take away reproductive rights for people with Huntington's disease. And that was, you know, that's only in the 80s and 90s. And for somebody as old as me, that feels like 10 years ago rather than the 30 years ago that it is.
The thing is that those sorts of strategies are not dreamed up by people with lived experience, not people who live with the disease. No. That's imposed by some, you know, medical authority or government or whatever. So it's, again, it's the power of getting involved as a person, and redefining what it means, I think, to
completely, you know, like the whole point of setting up the Scottish Huntington's Association came about because this treatment plan of sterilising females who, whether they were at risk of Huntington's or that they were married to somebody at risk of Huntington's. That was the option given to my family, and they were like, "This is not right. This does not seem right." And we know that it doesn't solve the HD problem. So it was a wrong treatment plan, but it was so. It's just a very recent history, and I think we sometimes forget that we've made huge leaps and bounds in quite a short period of time. And one of the things that we've managed to do with changing that particular thing was that we got people talking. It got people to say, this isn't right, let's talk about it, let's change it. And if we want this to change, nobody's going to do it for us.
That's
so
right.
We need to do it ourselves. And the best people, the biggest experts in the world about HD are the people who live with it 24/7.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know,
and
they know more than anybody.
Yeah, and the best people to do the awareness raising, really, you know.
Yeah, completely.
So Lauren and Jacob, I mean, obviously, you know, just in that poll that Tammy ran, you know, the people haven't got involved yet. They're not quite sure where to start. What would you say to people who are not yet kind of, you know, at the stage of getting involved with Huntington's Vic or their local Huntington's organisation?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's completely up to the individual whether they reach out or not, and that sort of thing. We always encourage everyone to come down to our events, and as you guys just say, our main thing is about raising awareness and, you know, taking away that stigma around the whole thing. So, and you know, it might be just coming to a fundraiser and hearing a couple of stories or something like that, you know, sort of dipping your toe in the water. But I mean, awareness is our main purpose, and we'll continue to drive that for anyone who wants to get involved.
Yeah. So sorry, Lauren.
I was going to say that's why we'll make posts on social media advertising our events, so that other people know that they're more than welcome to attend. We're not sort of an exclusive invite or anything like that.
Yeah. So how I mean, this is like a, you know, again, you know, all of you, you know, it's a long-term commitment. You know, it's probably, you know, 25 years between you sort of involved in this. I mean, how has it changed how you've kind of come to terms with living with HD, doing this sort of work?
I suppose, well, things have changed a little bit, and we really haven't, I mean, outside of Mum going through it, we haven't sort of had anyone, you know, progressively deteriorating or anything like that for a few years now. So, and you do find it's a bit harder on the fundraising side of things when you don't have someone actively involved that is going through it at this time, and it maybe is a little bit harder for people to get involved. But when these people come and see us and chat to us about what we're doing and why we've done it and what we've been through, and that, yeah, it's one of those ones that people instantly take an interest in, and it's never difficult to have people come back and want to, you know, share the experiences and help you do what we're trying to push, which is A, awareness, and B, helping out others.
Yeah, and you've done a great job over a really long period. It's brilliant. And so, Kat, what's next for you after kind of, you know, building the movement and, you know, such a huge commitment?
My next challenge, I think, is to get them to look at the design of clinical trials for HD patients and families, because as much as they're really exciting, they're really hard. And the clinical trial setup is very clinical, but it completely and utterly devoid of emotional support. So one of my big kind of bandwagons is kind of like, we need to look at how we support people through clinical trials, and it's not just the person who's, you know, like having the lumbar puncture or whatever else, the infusion. It's also the person that's got to drive them there, or the person who's got to deal with the repetitive behaviour the week leading up to it, and then the week after it, and then thinking about, when do I go next? And what about this? And what about that? It's so draining on a caregiver. So we need to change that up. That's probably my next bandwagon. And just, Alan, to go back to your point about why people should show up to things.
Yeah.
Just because you show up to things doesn't mean to say that you need to tell people why you're there. You can just go and have a good time. But for a lot of people who are really scared of HD and really scared of looking at it in their own life, actually hearing other people live with it positively or how they're getting through things makes a massive difference. So if you're terrified of going to one of these things because you think you need to tell somebody everything about your life, you don't. Go and be anonymous. Go and just have a great time, have a dance, have a cocktail, try and get the mic off of Tammy and have some fun. But what you'll learn is going to be invaluable to you, and how you choose to use that information is your choice. But you're never forced to tell anybody why you're there. You can just be, well, I knew somebody who said this was a good night.
Yeah.
End of story. So, and the same for showing up to like the bike rides or the fundraisers. Just go and have a good time. Because I think one of the things that I've learned with this whole thing is that hearing somebody else's story absolutely has an impact. And it'll give you ideas, it will help you change your perspective, but it'll also make the connections that you're going to need at some point in your life.
Yeah, no, it's a really important point. I think certainly what I've seen that Huntington's Vic do, there's plenty of opportunities, and it's a really strong community and very welcoming. So it's great. So look, it's probably time to wrap up. So look, if I had a hat, I'd take it off. It's you guys are fantastic, and all power to you. You know, in your future work, and thanks for your contribution, and also for being on the panel today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Thanks.